looks like Julie Gilman, our select board representative, is also missing. So meeting minutes, I don't have any meeting minutes from the last meeting to review. I did talk to Amanda briefly by email just about the last meeting. We'll get to that in a second. It sounds like there was discussion around the CIP list in a letter for the Budget Recommendations Committee. So we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so I'm not fully caught up on what we talked. I missed the last meeting, which was back in September. I think, do we still have a bunch of minutes outstanding? We probably do.
We do.
Okay. So those are on the agenda. We'll see what we can do for the next meeting for those. I didn't get to any of them before this meeting either. I don't know if this is being recorded or aired or not. Haven't seen my buddy Bob or any of the AV people, but we'll assume that it is. Does anybody have any meeting minutes to submit?
No.
I think we have a question mark. I think that was it Amanda? Rob, do you remember?
Who took the last ones?
Was 9/16 our last meeting?
I believe that was.
That was
Yeah,
Amanda.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
She had offered it.
All right, so we'll put Amanda down for those.
She's not here, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't bring my notes. But.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do about getting those caught up by the end of the year so we can go into next year with a clean slate. I've been extremely busy, so I haven't gotten to it, but I guess if we're going to do this, we'll have to make the commitment to get caught up on the minutes, even if they're not very comprehensive, you know, as long as they capture the big points from the meetings. So do what you can to catch up on those for the next meeting. I think we'll probably be meeting monthly from here on out, unless we need a special meeting to meet any more frequently. So item 3 on the agenda is Rains Farm, and we have Kristen Murphy with us here from Conservation Commission, is that right?
Technically the planning department, but
Planning
yes.
department, okay.
But I do provide, I'll use this in case we are being recorded, I do provide staff support to the Conservation Commission.
Oh,
so
okay, gotcha.
That's the overlap there. So as you know, we applied for grant funding and were successful at receiving an LCHIP, the Land Community Heritage Investment Program grant. The voters supported a $100,000 match, and the Conservation Commission provided $50,000. So we had $250,000 to complete repairs at Rains Barn as of March, the March town meeting. I had issued 2 RFPs and then also extended one of them because the first one I didn't get any responses, and the second one I also didn't get any. Well, I got one response, but we deemed it unqualified, and we don't. I could talk offline, I guess, about that in more detail. But so I was kind of, scratching my head as to why we received no responses. We knew, I'm in the building department. I know contractors are flat out right now. And the other thing I did was I did include the maximum amount of money that we had for the project. And so I suspected it was material costs. There's been dramatic increases. So the consultant who put together the original scope of work, Stephen Bedard with Bedard Preservation and Restoration, he was tied up. He didn't bid because he was tied up on another project. He's been he has several LCHIP projects he's been working on, and in my mind, he would be an ideal candidate because he has that experience with LCHIP, and they can be very particular about materials that they need up front to approve before you can start any work, and information and compliance with Secretary of Interior building standards for historic structures. So he would have been great. Anyway, so he was tied up, but I kept reaching out to him in hopes that maybe he could give some insight to what's going on in the contracting world, how can we improve our scope of work, and I finally caught him kind of in a gap between projects. And I said, please put together if you're willing, a quote for what he's like, yeah, costs have gone up 30% across the board. And I said, please, if you're willing and interested, could you please put together a quote for those numbers? And he did. And so the total project cost was $275, which is, wait a minute, 325, I think it was. And so let me get the real numbers. Sorry, I'm never good at ad-libbing numbers. No, the new total project cost would have been 321,600 versus 249,600. And so we looked at those numbers or the proposed scope of work, and some of those things included addition of a preservative coating on the silo. So it's basically like a sealant on the exterior of the silo, kind of like paint, but not paint exactly. And also a fire detection system. And both of those things haven't been in place on the property since we've owned it or since it's been in existence. Both of those things also could be achieved in smaller fashions as individual projects and didn't support the structural integrity of the building or public access. So I looked at that, and if I removed those two items, that would mean we have a $50,000 shortfall in the budget. And to me, I was like, well, that's kind of in grant range, so I started searching around for grants. And I found an opportunity that timing was spectacular and the funding was spot on. And it's for the T-Mobile, like the cell phone company, hometown grants. And they offer up to $50,000 in grant funds to small communities. And small, they define as populations less than 50,000, which we fall into, for the purposes of improving community gathering sites and infrastructure or something along those lines. So, like downtown parks or things of that nature. And so to me, Rain's Barn is exactly that. It's a gathering spot, it's community owned, and so I talked to the subcommittee and the Conservation Commission, and they're on board with me applying for this grant. Should it be awarded, this $50,000 would achieve the entire scope of work except those two things that I mentioned. And if we didn't apply for that, we'd have to modify the scope of work. And the end product, I think we've got it figured out. So the end product would mean, the interior foundation work and sill repair and all of that would be complete. But 2 of the 4 sides would be the only exterior sides that would be treated, the clapboards replaced and painted. And although I think that's a great backup plan, it's just not as satisfying, right? Like we want to be able to walk away from this project and say, it's done for a bit, like obviously you'll always have building maintenance, but it looks good. It's something we can be proud of as a community, and we're done. So the reason why I'm here today is to request, so the grant application, let me talk about timeline, I guess. It's due at the end of December. They notify awardees within 30 to 60 days, so we'll know relatively quickly if we're successful. And so we need to provide letters of support for this project. So I've sought quite a few letters of support, but as the FAC, I thought it would be great to have yours on there. I know you were willing to do that when we went through the initial grant application. So here today, I provided a draft. I don't know if the full committee was able to see that, but I provided a draft letter for your consideration, and I'm hoping that you're willing to do so and supportive of the ultimate goal of getting this grant funding and moving the project forward. So.
Okay. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
We're on our first item about the Rains
Good.
Farm cost overrun, so you haven't missed much yet. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Kristen?
So how much was the sealer portion?
So the silo, the protective coat was, let me see, I have to do it backwards. It was, where is it? Oh, there it is. The silo preservative coating was $7,000. And the fire, is that the next question?
Yeah, I'm not gonna worry about the fire
Oh,
detection,
okay,
I just wanna know what.
Yeah, $7,000.
Yeah.
So, to me, those are biteable. I don't know if
Yes,
that's the right.
exactly, there's something you could actually peel off pretty quickly and do later on as a separate item. The fire detection, one of them, I think in general, like many people have said before, is at what point would the barn would a detection system really get you
Right.
without some sort of suppression or something else out in that space? I don't know, but.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is if it's preventing, by not having one, it's preventing more use of the building, right? So
Yeah.
if the fire department said you can't have gatherings over 50 people because you don't have that, then to me, that would make it a priority
Yeah.
to do that. So, but I mean, it's, if it's just a fire detection system and it goes off at midnight on a Saturday,
Right.
and who's gonna even, unless the
Yeah,
neighbors open,
exactly.
so.
I think that goes, what is the goal of the system? Is the goal to get greater occupancy, or is the goal to, protect the property? And I think
Yeah.
it's a good nuance to, ultimately what's the goal of the long-term goal?
Yeah, I was going to add to that, Rob, if are you still going? Or
No, I'm good, thank you.
I was just going to ask that, Kristen, I know we had a really good tour, maybe 2 years ago now, or maybe a year and a half ago. As far as that planning, that strategic plan of where you had good thoughts about what to do with this going forward, and this is a piece of that to be able to do that, but in just as far as, what else, after this is to preserve the structure.
Yep.
But then to go forward and say, okay, in order to continue or to expand use of this, what else is next, like access and things like
Yeah,
that?
so, I mean, in the short term, so this project scope would improve access. It does have inclusions for an ADA access ramp into the east side of the barn. Public Works, our in-kind match was Public Works is putting a parking lot on the south side of the barn for event use only, because it is a dangerous corner, but that would be ADA compatible with a path up to
Great.
that east entrance. In terms of the ability for the Conservation Commission or the town to host events, I think we have capacity for monthly events out there. And the beauty of this project, so right now, if we were to have an event out there, Fire and Safety has said, keep it under 50 people, or don't have it barn focused. So you can have the barn open, but people need to mill in and out. So you can have it open for cocoa. We don't give access to the full interior. But when you do that, one, that means you have to time it outside of the growing season, because it is an active agricultural field. And so that shortens your window to, fall and early spring and winter, late fall, early spring and winter, and then you're dependent on weather.
Mm-hmm.
And so we believe that this will improve access. I've been told that if the interior repairs are complete, although this was the former fire chief, if the interior repairs are complete, it's 100 people that would trip and I don't have the terms right, but like community gathering or something like that, regulations, and to get above that, it's like sprinkling the building, and we're just not going there. So, so I think we have, just by nature of being able to use the barn interior and focus events in the interior, I think we'll be able to expand use. And I think we have capacity to grow it beyond that. One day, the Conservation Commission has talked about creating a 501c3 Friends of Rains barn, but that's a longer look down the road.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
And actually 50 is pretty good for that space, probably a
Yeah.
pretty good occupancy.
Yeah.
So I think that's is there anything that's tied to are there accessibility code stuffs tied to the grants? Are they federal grants?
So LCHIP is, Julie, help me. LCHIP is a state grant, or it's issued to
It's federally
this
funded?
nonprofit organization through the state. I think a portion of the funding is issued directly from Department of, I don't know.
Some of it is directly from the general budget, and some of it is from the registration fees.
Oh, right.
the
When you register, that's right. When you register your deed, you see an LCHIP surcharge, that a
Yep.
portion of those funds comes.
So there really is ultimately then, there's not a federal requirement because that's part of the, when you have federally funded projects, there's a requirement for certain accessibility requirements.
Well, it depends on the age of the building, or the age or the price, I forget. Like I'm trying to think of the congregational
You can
churches.
apply for a relief from it being a potentially a historic structure and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
there's some requirements for that, but it sounds like you're at least providing general access to the building and at least to one main level of the building
Right.
access.
Right. But that wasn't because of demand of the grantors. That was the commission's intent.
So we're all understanding of escalation in prices, so it's not a surprise at all, and I'm sure a lot of municipalities are dealing with this sort of thing for budget items that were approved last year and now get into construction this year. So I'm certainly sympathetic and open to this grant process. Is the contractors what's their availability, and I mean,
So-
is there also built in any more contingency to handle any more cost increases over the next, say, 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, so the revised pricing does include 10% contingency and 10% management fee general conditions. So I think I mean, this is kind of seemingly unprecedented, I guess, in this timeframe. So I think that we should be covered. He has assured me, so I've spoken with Rustine, because we have gone through the RFP process, we've done enough to justify sole source. And so he's willing and available, and so kind of the interim, because we need to enter into a contract before the end of the year, I've been working with LCHIP to modify the scope of work to what we have currently available in an attempt to enter into a contract in December so that we can encumber the funds and all of our existing money is secure. And then I'll know pretty quickly thereafter if this grant is successful, in which case I'd modify our scope of, our contract with the contractor and our scope of work with LCHIP to go back to the original. So it's kind of messy, but
So it sounds like either way, you're ready to bring him on board and start
Absolutely.
the process.
Yeah.
Okay. My last question for you would just be, the draft letter you sent us looks good. Is it worth our while to do anything to edit that, or do you think as it is constituted, that would be fine for us just to kind of rubber stamp and send along to you?
I think it's fine, but I'm open to,
Okay.
if you want to edit it, that's great too. I just tried to put on your voice,
Yeah.
but I'm not you, so
I'm just
don't
trying
know.
to, there's other details we could add in terms of, how we understand that cost escalations are impacting projects or things like that, but I don't know if
Sure.
that's needed or not in this sense. Are they just going to say, okay, here's a letter of support from a building committee? That's cool.
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, this is a new, I just kind of stumbled upon this grant. It seems like a great, I hope we apply for more of them, actually. It seems, it's been a relatively low lift for a decent, when I compare this to the Moose Plate grant, that's half the amount. It's like, oh my gosh. But I don't know. I think it's okay. I think it would be great if you added more
Yeah, we could
in your
probably
voice.
put some, okay, that would be fine. All right, does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Okay, do you wanna-
I would make a motion that we support provide our support for the project and the going after this additional grant to meet the budget conditions, and I guess if we want to modify it, and I just want to make sure that we're timely enough that we modify it so that we meet before the end of the year
Yeah, it needs to be
requirements.
real-
And I think that would be the only cautionary tale, is that with everybody being busy, do we have time to do that? And if this will work, do we go ahead and say that this is acceptable, and that we would endorse the letter as drafted? that would be,
Yeah, I can probably wordsmith it a little bit in the next day or two, so with the goal of getting it back to you on Friday, just so it's out of our hands and we're not holding up anything.
That would be great.
Friday's tomorrow, Chris.
Oh,
I
right.
know.
It's later, it's 3.
Yeah, no, I know. I've got a few things that I got to do tonight, and the draft that you provided is pretty, it's pretty comprehensive. So, like I said, I can just add a few things, building specific to it, some comments that we have, and send it along. So you've done a lot of the work for us, which I
Right.
appreciate. But is there a second for Rob's?
Second Rob's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we universally accept that we'll recommend this and we'll provide a letter of support
Perfect.
to you for this. And
So
best
if
of
there's
luck
a way
procuring-
that I can, make it easier to come and pick it up from wherever once it's signed, just to say the word,
Yeah. I
I'm
can
not here
send you a
tomorrow,
digital
obviously, but-
copy, I guess. And
Yep.
if you want to just print that out,
Perfect.
that'll be fine.
Yep.
So.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Great.
Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen. Okay, next item on the agenda is I don't have it in front of me, but it's the FCA proposals. So Dave said he's unable to make it. He's traveling today, and I guess he changed the flight time, so now he's probably en route to the airport or in the air now.
should we call?
But he said basically whatever we recommend, he'll go with, as long as we don't recommend or ask him for something too far out of the ordinary. So I'd like to open up discussion on that. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at the spreadsheet for the costs and also the individual proposals from all the various firms. And I was able to look through those today.
I think we can start by ruling out some.
I was there's 3, I have 3 that I have ruled out already, and it's not just cost factors, although they are the 3 highest costs. So, did you want to
Yeah, that would be good.
share?
The ones that are not even relatively close, and the question would be is that, like we had talked about before, do we identify 2 or 3 of these and have either a Zoom or a Teams
Yeah.
call with them to really kind of go through the scope to understand a little bit more about their approach, kind of weed them down to maybe a couple?
Yeah, so Criterium, Colby, and Harriman are all like 3 local AE firms, and they don't really do what we're looking for.
Yep.
So, and they're also the highest priced ones. So to me, I would recommend just not pursuing those at all. The other 3, Bureau Veritas, Roth IAMs, and ISES, I thought were all viable. They are FCA-focused firms. They do what we're looking for. I wouldn't mind if, and they're all, I wouldn't say remote, but they're not local.
Right. Yep.
So, yeah, I think it wouldn't be, to me, I would like to speak to all 3 of those. I know the ISES one is high at 62, but that did include software in it, whereas like the Roth IMs one is kind of nice and cheap, but there's also a optional ad for the software and for a couple other items. So it might not be as cheap as it looks. So my recommendation would be to set up Teams calls, and we can do interviews over Teams or Zoom with those 3 firms. So any other?
I didn't get a chance to look at the
Okay.
meet on you guys.
Yeah, the 3 firms is Bureau Veritas, Roth IAMs, and ISES. They're all FCA firms. That's their focus. That's what they do. One's in Florida, one's in, I forget where the other 2 are. I think one's in Georgia, and
Right.
Yeah.
When did you got Georgia and Florida, and then
I forget where. I think it might be Bureau Veritas.
yeah, I was going to ask David the other one that I had given him, which was On-Site Insight, which is a FCA firm, but then they were out of Boston, and I did not see anything come back. That's the one I sent to him. Actually, I sent him a couple, but it's one that I know that is does a really good job, fairly local, and from a pricing standpoint that I've seen, it not hugely out of whack. So you don't have the $5,000 a trip
Yeah.
fee, right?
Yeah, yeah, but apparently they didn't submit, though, if...
I guess not.
All right, well, I don't have too much more beyond that, so what do you guys think? Like, should we recommend to Dave that we'd like to have Teams calls with those 3 firms?
Yeah, that would be a good recommendation, is to at least to get this thing to the next level and really have those discussions.
Chris, can you repeat the firms doing the
Yeah,
minutes?
Bureau Veritas.
All right,
I don't know how good your Latin is.
yeah, I can look up the names. But
Okay. Roth, and then the second one is all capital letters. It's IAMS, IAMS. Roth IAMS, kind of like Will.I.am from the Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah, there you go.
Or something. And then the last one is ISES.
That's the one that came in late,
Yeah.
right?
So is there 4?
No, those are 3.
Oh, I thought there was the Bureau Veritas.
Yep.
Then Roth.
Roth IAMS.
Oh, that's
all
the same
one.
company.
Yep,
Okay.
that's the same place.
And what was the third?
ISES.
ISIS.
Yeah.
That's what we so yeah, I know it's not, they don't, I'm sure don't go by that anymore, but, so the Academy used them for 6 years
Oh.
as a facility condition assessment. So they're actually, I can speak to them, but speak about them, but they're good, it's a good firm.
Okay.
But they were competitive? I'm surprised they were competitive.
Their price came in at $62,000, but like I said, it might be comparable to the other ones because it has some things included in it that aren't necessarily included in the other ones
Okay,
that are listed as optional, like the software use. Some of them charge like an annual fee for the software use, and it's pretty steep.
they probably do on theirs too, right?
Yeah, they did too, but that's included in part of their $62,000 fee, whereas like on Roth IAMs, it's not.
Okay,
And that includes hosting.
Yeah, hosting, and then that also has access to like those RS means or whatever,
Right,
cost
so that you would have
estimating.
cost
software.
updates. In other words, if you wanted to sit there and say in 2024, when we finally get to the point where it's, less than 12%, then we could go back down to, the 4%,
Yeah,
the index goes down a little bit.
yeah. All right, so does anybody want to make a motion to set up interviews, or ask Dave to, our recommendation to Dave would be to set up remote interviews with those 3 firms?
So moved.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All right, it passes 4-0, so I'll follow up. Well, looks like you're doing the minutes.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yep. Jump
Yeah,
on it.
we'll send those out to Dave and let him know tomorrow who we want to talk to. Okay, next item on the agenda. This is something I put on there pursuant to my brief conversation with Amanda about what you guys talked about last meeting, which is CIP list and the BRC letter. So I don't know if you guys have more information on that, or...
Well, you had done a draft of the update that's for
Yeah.
the other one, the public safety complex, but
You talked a lot about the public safety complex.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
we've
okay.
kind of missed that boat, though. I mean, that was presented to there was an update presented to the board, I think, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but it's very generic.
Oh, it's-
It's not, because what we're going for is design, construction, and build. So,
Yeah.
it's the whole ball of wax, and so all we have is, the space needs and the associated spaces and what's locked off from each other, but it's not, the exterior is totally not designed, or not in a way that anybody would like.
So is it still the plan? I mean, what we had talked about was what Dave had presented to us, that the plan on the warrant article was to go for the new building, design and construction of the new building, but not to do anything with the existing fire
Right.
police station.
Right, only to use words that say doing this project, causes the next project, so that people aren't surprised in a couple of years when we come to them with the next project.
Okay,
Which
so
would be
that
the
seems-
fire station.
There was no
Itself.
financial commitment to the next phase of the project, only
Right.
just a commitment that there will be something that comes out as a result.
Right,
This isn't potentially the end of the public safety, but the beginning of it.
because we can't,
Is that a,
yeah, because we can't commit a future Board of Selectmen to a dollar figure that's made this year or next year.
So I'm just looking, trying to find that, what we had drafted, what I had sent out back last month. No, that's not right. So what we talked about, I was trying to find the draft that we sent, but basically I thought we were suggesting, let me try to find it before I say anything.
yeah.
Unless you have it, Rob, handy.
Yeah, I do.
There it is, I just found it. So, what we had what the draft letter was, and this is based on a memo that Dave gave us that was dated September 14th, 22. FAC agrees with focusing on a warrant article for a first phase that consists of constructing a new facility on Continental Drive, but disagrees with postponing the decision on the future of 20 Court Street until some point in the future. It is the opinion of the FAC that the taxpayer-funded study performed by Valley Brenzinger and recently completed is sufficient and has provided the Select Board adequate information to make a decision that is most appropriate for the town of Exeter. Although the FAC agrees that funding for this phase can wait for a subsequent warrant article, we strongly believe that it's in the best interest of the town residents to know what the next phase is in order to make an informed decision on phase 1. As a first step, FAC recommends that the town fully vet the option proposed to renovate the existing facility at 20 Court Street and develop a realistic full cost for a concept that considers current renewal needs and includes items that are currently listed as add alternates but most likely should be included. For example, an additional cost of $1.3 million was listed for full replacement of the MEP FP systems. The age and condition of these systems make the replacement of these critical and should be included in the baseline renovation to avoid future costs. That was the draft letter. So,
Yeah.
so Julie, has anything close to that been presented to you guys or no?
Really, just the discussion of whether, very simple discussion about the, that we have the public service building set. Everybody's agreed, we want to put this on the warrant article. There's still some work to be done after the funding comes. And then pretty much what you just read, that, the second, we're not going to do the warrant article with both sets of money, but the second one should include the list of things that would be important.
The only caveat I'd say is I think what was presented to the Budget Committee and group was that there was the 4.1 million or whatever else, that was the baseline budget, which didn't include a lot of the things that we, again,
Yeah.
believe were really needed to be baseline. Were not kind of presented in that way. They were presented pretty much just as the 4.1 million, and the things that were not included in that were not really, were not discussed in any kind of detail for that. But I think the reality is at this point, it is going after the construction of the new building, and with the caveat that there's
Wait and see.
something to come down the line.
But, unfortunately, it'd be nice if it was communicated that this is the size of the phase 2 that has to happen, right? So,
Yeah, it's just where we get into the trouble of giving a dollar number now, so that the select board in 2024, we could say, we could work out some verbiage to say today's cost would be, but 2024 will be something completely different. There's some more eloquent way to say that, but
Well, and
I guess you want to know the scope of the cost. Or
I think that, I guess my thought is that ultimately I thought the Valley Brenzinger report and what there was summarized, at least the last one we read, about what systems and what things needed to be done and what level of renovation was going to happen,
Yeah.
there was like a $9 million, if you added up all of it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't that be a reasonable value to go after from a budget standpoint? It had the scope, the systems that need to be done, the renovations, the updates. I guess that's why
There's,
we paid for an evaluation. It was done, and then we're basically we're backtracking on the whole fire station portion of the.
Well, when we talked with Dave in the memo, it was left kind of hanging about what that next phase was going to be, right? What the scope was, whether it was
refurbish or
Yeah.
removal, raise and rebuild.
And I think that was the intent of that paragraph. That the second paragraph was for you guys that the town should pick a path and just say the next phase is this,
commit to the.
right? And say that it's not this several things we're still considering. That this is what we want to do with the existing public safety, and just say it, and so that the taxpayers know that we're going to build the new building, and this is the cost. The next phase is this. It's not like, well, we're still going to study and figure out later.
Yeah, it's probably more attractive.
Yeah, and just pick and just say the next phase is, and you could, I agree that, it's a little bit hard to share numbers now, but, I mean, if you at least told the community that this is what we want to do next, and it's still, all this stuff is public, you can still say that right now it's $9 million.
Right.
You don't know what it's going to be in 3 years. You don't even know when that next phase is going to happen, but what we want to do is this. it would go a long way to me.
No, saying it that way is fine. The part of the conversation was just sticker shock, and that's from going through the CIP. Maybe depending on what we choose to put on the warrant, adding 9 million or whatever to this one
Right.
Yeah.
can be okay.
And that actually would be another way to approach this,
Yeah.
is that what's sitting on the CIP as a,
Something
there's a
that-
scope defined, there's a number that's associated with it and a date, right? So, September 2022, there's the definition of that with the items, and then this was with the value. So at least as, starting to list for 2023 or 2024 CIP items, that would be probably a good way to start, because,
Yeah. Yep.
it's beginning that list of projects that are either yet to be done or that are in the queue.
Scheduled, yeah.
to-
Yeah, add
look
to
at.
the CIP
Right.
first, yeah.
I haven't looked at that information in a while. I thought we had hard numbers too from LaValley as far as renovation versus replacement of the fire department.
We did, but there's a certain conversation about how much we can do in-house,
Oh,
which,
like what would we do in-house?
I don't know, move walls
Oh,
and put doors in. I don't think there'd be very much, frankly.
That's
Yeah,
what's going to happen, though.
That's what's going to happen yeah.
Because what will happen is that they'll do interior renovations in this. As soon as the police station moves out, they're going to go and spend money to do interior renovations of the building, and just basically do it as kind of as needed basis.
Yep.
So
yeah, and still have,
that is one of my concerns, is that ultimately
Yeah.
it's you're going to go in there and say, oh, okay, we want to use the space, but
Well,
just
there's going to be some stuff they're going to have to do to make the space usable, right? You have a police department that leaves, and so there's going to be space that it's like, well, we can't use this until we do this, and right?
Right.
It's.
And you had brought that up before, of putting at least some value into the number
Yeah.
to cover the ancillary costs of like whatever, $1 million or something, to go in there and do something to the space to make it usable when the police
Well,
move
I'm
out.
assuming that the warrant article that's being developed now for the new building would have something in there about moving the police over, right? So some sort of cost is associated in that project, whatever that is to relocate the police. There's going to be something in there for that, and then you could have a line item in that, this $50,000 to rehab that space to get it usable for a fire department.
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe not. But it's, you get somebody that's occupying a space when they leave, it's going to be dirty carpets and it's going to be torn stuff. It's,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. So Chris, I don't know if we want to do anything with the draft letter. That was based on discussions that we had at the
yeah,
meeting.
okay. No, that's good. So I'm trying to think of procedurally, if we did submit is there still value of submitting that letter to the select board?
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember whose letter went to the budget committee. That was the energy committee. Yeah, we still have time to do that, and
Okay.
and definitely, we have.
So when's the final vote? January?
The select board has to vote on what goes on the warrant in January.
January, yeah.
And the CIP is being discussed by the Budget Recommendation Committee the end of this month? Or early?
So that's a letter we'd want to issue to the BRC and select board in the next, say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
week or two.
Particularly, if we want to get it into the CIP because have you looked at what the CIP has that,
I have not.
yeah, they have a space for, the name of the project and, but then there's, when, actually they don't have what year was it put on the list anymore, which, anyway, what year is projected to go on the warrant, and what's the
okay.
estimate that we have right now, and then the full description of why and what.
Okay.
Want me to resend that?
Yeah, resend that, because
Julie, I didn't copy you on before.
apparently I didn't read it, but that sounds good,
Yeah, I mean, there was a draft, we can
Yeah,
take it.
I just wanna read it
highlight
again.
the points we discussed.
But I think that's close to what we would, if not, pretty much what we want to issue.
So I just sent it out again for everybody to
Okay.
look at.
Okay, thanks.
So we want to, let me just go back to meeting minutes. Takeaway is that we'll have everybody review the letter again.
Yeah, and try to issue it, say, gosh, Thanksgiving is coming right up. If we could issue it by, say, Tuesday before Thanksgiving,
Yeah, let me just look at the calendar.
I think that's the 22nd, so that gives us like over a week. And I need to do it quickly or else I won't get to it.
So by November 22nd.
Okay, the BRC wrap-up is the 17th of
Oh, the
November.
17th.
So that's,
Oh, okay. So maybe sooner.
that's a week.
Yeah. I don't know if we can issue it to them on Monday, the 14th or something.
That's a week from today, right? Today's the 10th?
Yep.
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday of next week. I mean, it's really close. If I can get you my comments today on it, and then.
Well, I mean, it would, I would assume, come from the chair, so.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to just take it and,
If I can at least talk about it on Monday, is our next select board
Okay.
meeting.
All right, so maybe if we try to get it to you, so we owe Kristen a letter very quickly.
Everybody's writing letters.
Yeah, but the good thing is I think we have pretty well-baked drafts.
Yeah.
do you want to just put it in a letterhead and put it at draft? And then that way Julie can take it and discuss it.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't at the meeting, Chris.
Yes.
A little bit at a handicap there, but,
Yep. All right, so, yeah, let me take a look at that, and I hate to publish drafts, though, just because,
yeah.
like, one of Peter's drafts was some interesting language went out and became kind of accepted as gospel when it was just a draft that wasn't approved by the whole board, so I want to be careful with drafts, but we'll see, we need to get something out, I guess, by the end of day tomorrow, so I'll take a look at it tonight, along with the Rains Farm recommendation letter.
Yeah, there shouldn't be too much to add to that, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But yeah, what you read, Mark, sounded good to me, so I don't think there'll be much to change, if anything, on the public safety recommendation as well.
I also included what I sent out, the memo from Dave, so you can reference, because it's referenced in the
Okay.
letter, so.
Oh, should we send this to Dave, you think, and then he can share it with BRC and Select Board, or how should we do that? Or should I just send it directly to BRC and Select Board?
Well, BRC is doing the CIP and budget wrap-up, so they'll be done on next Thursday.
Oh, I see. So that when they're meeting, it's already done. It's already been.
They haven't gone through the CIP and voted on what
okay.
projects to
All right.
put on the warrant or not, or what they recommend to put on the
And
warrant.
ultimately, that all goes back to the select board anyway, so it's
Right.
really,
It shouldn't really be aimed at the select board, I think. Well,
Yeah.
I
leave
mean, you
it
could, send it to the select board and courtesy copy the BRC,
Yeah.
right? So
Okay. I will do
we're
that
not, we're
then.
not saying, we're not adjusting the CIP, we're just saying that based on the communication from the select board, we should, that.
Yeah, so those two letters I'll update tonight, and I'll send them back to you guys and Amanda, just, so if you have any comments, send them to me tomorrow, and we'll issue them tomorrow. All right. So it's only 3:21, so that's good. So yeah, the next item I had on the agenda was the PSC study, but that was really what the crux of the CIP and the BRC stuff was. I don't know if either of you are aware of any other CIP items we should opine on or not.
For this year? Well, there was a lot of other big items that were,
Julie, did I see something on your last meeting, or maybe 2 weeks ago, about something about a town office renovation?
the town hall.
Town hall renovation,
Yeah.
is that what it was?
That's actually one of the things I was going to do on the new business side.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I was going to do too.
All right, we'll wait for that then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is going to be an adjustment to the town office over there, but it's being proposed as part of the general fund budget. And I hate it.
Okay. So item 7 we have on the list is the ADA list. It's been a while since we've done anything with that. I know Julie and Amanda and I had gone through and kind of prioritized that and sent it back to Doug and DPW. I don't know if they've done anything with it.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I think DPW's budget was last night and I didn't get to go.
Okay, we'll have to follow up with that on the next meeting.
I think they're, again, another short-staffed, and going to be more short-staffed.
Yeah, we just hired a few people and then other ones left. Different positions, but
Right.
that assistant town engineer's been empty for over a year.
Yeah, for gen mates, yeah.
And so is our electrical inspector. But that's another thing.
And then under item 8, I have 3 old business items, DPW campus plan and project list. I don't think that's anything of,
I don't think we've seen any renewed thing or any new list.
yeah, and we had included DPW as part of the facility condition assessment, so
Right.
hopefully we can get that going soon and get that going. Item B was committee interactions. Yeah, we haven't even met much as our own committee, so we haven't done anything with any other committees as well, so I don't have any updates on that item, as well as the next item, which is new and alternate members. We don't have any updates on that either.
No, I would like to go back to the working with other committees.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think Rob's going to suggest this too, but I'm pushing forward to get the town hall registered on the National Register of Historical Places. And in order to do that, we need to have a whole building assessment that is around $10,000, but the National Preservation Alliance will give us a grant of up to $4,500. And there's one quote that the Arts Committee got for doing the building assessment, and it looked pretty thorough, but then there's going to be a decision about the best uses of the space. And we talked about this once before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And I finally went on a tour, which I'm like the last one, on a tour of the town hall. And there are places in there, and it's like everything that I have to say has been done in this building and other buildings. Like, we need a room for something. Oh, we'll put one over there. And so there are rooms that you step up into and rooms that you step down into and rooms with no head clearance. And So that's part of the, when this company comes in, or a company comes in to do an assessment, they're going to be telling us, this was added in who knows when, and that was added in who knows when, and then we can make a decision with that of whether or not we want to actually take some space out, or definitely there's going to need to be some ADA compliance issues. But in doing this, I have the Arts Committee saying, let's go with the lights and the HVAC, and I have the Sustainability, or the Energy Committee saying, let's go forward with, well, they want HVAC too, but nobody's talking about how we're going to use the space, and we already have the arts gallery, and then the TV station has taken up a couple rooms, and they're not in a good situation to each other. So, and then the question becomes, once the Parks and Rec leaves, what do we want to put over there? Maybe that's where the TV station goes, and then we can do our bathroom plan. Like, we want to have a bathroom somewhere inside instead of people going outside. So what I'd like to do is have a master plan of the town hall. Go figure, right? But I think that, the first thing we want to do is get representatives from each of the groups with some interest to talk about what's a priority, because we got a quote from DPW for doing HVAC, and where did it come from and why? And it was, I don't know what it was based on. It's mini splits, and the town manager tried to describe it. It's like, okay, how many things are we going to have on the ground, around the building? So I had no idea what the design of it was. And that'll affect, whether we are going to use this room or, take it out. And there's, I'd have to say, a lot of what's upstairs is not original to the building. Most of it isn't. Like the gallery around it is not. So, just things like that. So we can, if we have all the interested parties together, a member from each of the committees to talk about, what we want to do here. We have our maintenance department there. They take up some space in the room, in the town hall, in one of the rooms, which is also access to the downstairs bathroom, but that's another story. And then, do we want to rent out the basement anymore? We're using half of it, or a quarter of it, actually. So, anyway, I think there are a lot of things.
That was obviously the original intent was for us to do the FCA, right?
Right.
The FCA was to identify these things, and then that would lead into a master planning effort, right? So part of what we don't necessarily have truly is a complete assessment of the entire building,
right,
for that particular building. So it sounds like is the assessment, because I read part of Arco's proposal, and it needs to be dovetail with what you're saying, because there's two proposals: one for doing a space needs analysis, and one to do like an assessment of the building.
Right.
So I think it would be good just to sort through what are we getting proposals for, what is the actual scope of work, what's our end product that we want at the end of this.
Right.
Because I know I've talked to Tony and to everybody else.
Talked to everybody,
about
the Arts Committee really wants to, is it Arts Committee or it's the?
Arts and Culture,
So
Like, when can we put in the lights and new chairs and sound system?
Like furniture, I don't like it, but when you're taking a historical building and you're going to put a HVAC system designed by a guy. And I'll go back to this, it's not to dismiss them, but they're not mechanical experts, and the reality is this historic building, and by a building envelope that isn't necessarily conducive to having a cooling environment, and what does it do to the nature of the building, what are the effects of it, and then what do you have to do both from an insulation, building envelope standpoint, all energy, all these things together.
Right.
What is our goal? If it's to be on the register, they're competing interests, right?
No. Getting onto the National Register is really an opportunity to get federal grant money, which we can't do right now, or we can get very little. And there isn't really, I'm going to say this out loud in public, but once you're on the National Register, you don't have to freeze the building in time. They would prefer you do, but it really depends on what the National Preservation or New Hampshire Preservation Alliance says. They may say, go forward. This area is not
Right.
historically resourced to the building. So that's the kind of information that we can get up front from a professional, and then from there we can go ahead with our master planning and space needs and all of that.
So, I mean, I think that should be the first step before you try to figure out what to do with the building, is figure out how you're going to use the building, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I would also, I think you should, I don't know if this is going to complicate this, but you mentioned the Parks and Rec building. I mean, should you take both buildings? I mean, it's almost like a space reuse committee or a building reuse committee that you want to develop.
Yeah.
Because, if you put your blinders on and look just at the town hall, you're going to be competing on that, right? And
Yeah.
but there could be, someone's going to say, well, what about this building? Why don't you guys just go over there? And so maybe you should take both together. And both I think are in need of the town to figure out what to do with them.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good comment, because ultimately, some of the uses aren't appropriate for that building.
Right.
So the question
Right.
would be, is that, that's one way of sorting them out, to sit there and say, is this, is that appropriate? Well, maybe it's not, and then you can sit there and say, well, where do we put that in our larger
Complex,
picture on our
Yeah.
space needs?
I mean, you mentioned about leasing out. I thought the whole lower level was being used by finance, no?
No, the chamber leases out.
So they're over there too?
Yeah.
Oh. But I mean, I think those are good discussions. That should be part of that is, I mean, like the Parks and Rec building. I mean, maybe that should be leased out. And maybe the town can't come up with a good use of it, but so then lease it and then get a revenue out of it.
Well, I've already had somebody say, can we just store all the planning and building department work over there, because they have to keep everything in paper form forever. And it's like, well, yeah, but where and how? And there's some
And what's
air
the best
conditioning.
use, right? I mean, you have a building that is in downtown Exeter that could be easily, someone would easily want to use that for offices or something like
Yeah.
that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I think a sequential plan to do it makes sense. And the question would be, it doesn't sound like an RFP went out. It sounds like someone solicited proposals
Yes.
from somebody they knew. And
Exactly.
so I think, what is the process that the town wants to engage in when it comes to soliciting professional services?
I think that'll come in the grant application, if they ask for 3 quotes or something like that.
So, okay.
So I'm just trying to, for meeting minutes, just so I'm clear. Sorry.
No, Rob's right. It's like we got one guy's proposal for
Sounds like Rob will
HVAC.
be
And
our representative to sit in.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to make sure I understand that as far as, all right, so the goal, Julie, what you brought up is that you had shared the quote from the firm to do an assessment. Was that accurate? It's been
yes,
a while since
a
I've looked at
historical,
this.
it's a HABS, a historical architectural building survey.
Architectural survey.
Yep.
And that's
Dave
required.
sent them to all of us.
Yeah, and that's required, it's a first step in order for this to be considered to be on the National Register?
Yes.
Okay. National Historic Register. Okay, thanks, I just want to make sure I was
Yep.
understanding.
Yeah, and it sounds like the overarching goal for Select Board is to get enough input from the various committees to determine the proper course of action
Yeah.
Yeah.
forward.
And this is a good one for going back to the marrying the different groups, because obviously the Energy Committee has already kind of been engaged in the insulation piece on this. You've got obviously windows and HVAC and a lot of things with a lot of competing interests.
Space moving around, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is where I got kind of, I don't know whether I want to say bemused or just irritated, but there's an assumption that a committee has been formed to do that already. And, to get together and talk about energy but I think it was like 3 people, saying, hey, we need that over there. Because, I mean, you haven't been formally asked to join something to talk about all these things together.
No, I think the last conversation I had was with Scott, and he was going to come to the meeting that we had when you weren't here. Scott was going to come and talk about the furniture portion of it, the new chairs or something like that. And the issue is that it does need to be kind of pulled together. There are things that potentially could be triggered earlier and could be amenities that could be done, but they need to be done with the ideas that, that's done in this, and you don't have to, initiate new stairs, new elevators, new, systems to go into the building all at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, Julie, about these rooms that were added and all these sort of things. That's because things have been done piecemeal, right? It's been very, very short term.
And painted green.
Yeah, right. But, I mean, it's a beautiful building. I mean, I do think the town should step up and figure it out, but it's going to be a lot of money. And so you talk about an HVAC system, you want to have air conditioning, then you just open up a whole nother cost point.
It's funny, in reading this part of the history of the building, people complain about it being too hot, and then that kind of rudimentary HVAC system went in, or cooling system went in, that was just was sucking up cool air from the basement, basically.
Nice.
And then people complained that it was too cold. It's like, okay.
I'm sure when it was damp and moist, too cold.
Yeah.
When it was dry, it was too hot.
And then there's, I think I smell mold, and I'm sure there's other things.
Well, and that's going to be the issue, is the people who really understand building envelopes. I mean, really understand building envelopes need to be involved in something like that, not just cursory. Historic projects that I've been involved in are very, very detailed on how to treat buildings like that, especially wood buildings. And
Yeah. Is there fire protection in the building?
Yes.
yeah, the sprinkler is
There's a sprinkler.
It's sprinkled.
Yeah.
There is.
I
Okay.
don't know, the main hall is sprinkler. I don't know about the smaller spaces. The gallery must be, but I'm just trying to remember. I didn't take any pictures.
So that's good. I mean, at least that's there. So.
The other thing, I still have the AutoCAD plans from when actually SMRT did the study back in 2000, whatever it was, 2010, 2009. So I still have the plans.
I didn't know there were any. I'd love to see them.
Yeah, so we got both
So.
this building and that building.
Can you send me a PDF?
So Julie, as far as if it does go forward with a committee and you have whatever you guys want to call it, and there's representation from all the other committees, someone needs to be in charge of that, right? Someone has to be the
Yes.
decision maker. Would that be a select board?
Yeah, I think this is an ad hoc kind of committee where, everybody's from another committee. It's like a subcommittee. It doesn't, we can even bring people from outside if we find a gap. But I would say yes, unless we do an orientation the first meeting and say who's going to be leading on this.
I mean,
Maybe facilities.
No, I guess one thing to think about is it, you should have a formal, I would say the select board should charge a town employee formally, like, this is
Your baby.
you create a town work,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and you could ask us
To
be part of that.
Yeah.
But it should, at the end, someone's going to make a decision, okay, what's the use of this building? And it should not be us or the energy committee or the
Right.
the arts and culture committee, right? Everybody should have input, but then at some point, whether it's a select board, but just to streamline.
Yeah, but we could wrangle some employee type to be in charge, maybe.
Dave.
Yeah. Poor Dave. He's like, he's perfect for everything. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you should, to me, it's a town property that guys should drive, like, okay, let's figure out what to use it for and get input.
Right.
Yeah, Dave's good at master planning. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what he does, so
Well, and that.
probably end up doing, well, and the Arts Committee already did a survey of what people want to see in there, so that'll drive part of it.
Yep. Yeah, great.
And ultimately, from our townwide master plan, it's identified as one of the, biggest assets in the community. So you look at that as, like you said, it's a beautiful building, and really, because it's iconic, you have the politicians and everybody else, and it's a big part of the community and needs to have the attention.
Yeah, and I think it's probably what the Arts Committee is talking about is you can make some improvements, then it just expands the use of that, right? So if you make it where it's there's a sound system and a light system and better seating and,
Yep.
then it just, you can use it more. It's almost if you build it, they will come, right? So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but you got to figure out what
Well,
that
you
is.
look at most of the towns that I've been to, especially with the small towns, all the meetings that are like this meeting are all in their
Yeah.
former town halls. That's,
Town meeting, yeah.
Every one of them have converted their town hall into some sort of public meeting space, and, and it's set up so that we
Yeah.
do have larger meetings, and but they're flexible. They're flexible spaces that can adapt to different uses based upon what's going on. And
I wonder, I mean, that's, because it's so big, right, for most of the meetings, it just feels too big for most of the meetings that happen, right?
Oh, but
It's too small for most.
But that's the thing, is that we have the smaller room that used to be the town clerk's office at some point, or ticket sales on one side. And then there's the rooms upstairs that are just storage.
Yeah.
And the film crew's already there across the way. This is how we want to use this space because we have this situation right now.
Right. Has there ever been talk about a partnership with a private entity for that building? I'm just wondering if there could be where that way it shares some of the financial burden of the building, where
No, it's a good discussion point.
you partner with a,
I know someone would go crazy, but yes.
yeah. I mean, the town doesn't use it probably to its full extent, even if it was renovated, right? So if there was a partnership with, something that's non-government.
Right. Yeah, I really can't see that production or a concert or, some kind of cultural thing happening there every night, Tuesdays.
Well, yes, I agree. And to Mark's point, what it does is, I think one of the difficulties with the space now is the management of it, and the maintenance and management of it. And what a third party may add to that is they take care of scheduling and management, and making sure that the things are set up for whatever event is going on, and have to deal with the conflicts of when one group says that, no, I'm going to have used space, and things like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if you share the costs of maintaining and renovating, but then there's revenue that could be associated with that, and so however that works out. But
Yeah.
you have a company that figures it out more than the town trying to figure it
Right.
out, right?
And you figured if you'd have to write within that contract, what are the gotta-haves, right, for the town?
Yeah.
Yep.
And these are the priority ones for us, and the other ones are that. So,
Yeah.
but I think the first thing is, is that the thing? Do you find someone who's going to lead it, form a committee to really start it formally?
Well, it's been coming up with everybody in every kind of meeting. I don't even know about the sustainability committee, if they'd want to have anything to do with it other than changing to a more green solution for heating and cooling. But and the energy committee, the arts and culture, they're really the driving forces on it, and one doesn't have a link to the other. So that's part of the idea with making a town hall master plan committee, and just to get ideas from this committee are completely different from ideas from some of the other committees, and the how to get there too, I think.
I think you might, I think with each committee has a different vision or a different mission, right? So you're going to get some territorial discussions, I think, because.
Well, that's why you want to have the committees to, they might be the same, like some of us don't know anything about theatrical lighting and sound.
Yeah.
And how much space is that going to take up, and where is it going to take up?
How much
space?
it's going to cost.
Yeah.
And who runs it.
Right.
So, that's not somebody that's flipping a switch. That's a little bit more than that, right? So, I don't know. I wonder if there's a study that can be done by a consultant that can come in and say, what's the best use of this building? Maybe we've already done one. I don't know, but someone that could look at this and say what the town.
Well, that's with this first step of defining what are the character defining features.
Okay.
Because then we'll know what we can't move. Like, somebody will say, in order to have a really good show, we need to get rid of the gallery, because it's not original to the building. It came in 1911 or so. But right now, it's a character-defining feature. Everybody knows it, and they like it.
Well, that's the other thing, right? That's that's what I think is kind of a cool feature of the building, is to have that, right?
And then the issue is you could do the study, but you wouldn't necessarily have to have the study be something that becomes...
The guide.
Huh?
The guide.
Well, it could be just saying it's defining the features, but it then becomes one of those things where you balance it out with the use, right? To sit there and say, well, from a highest and best use scenario, or do some of these features stay because it's a better use of the facility? And that's part of that negotiation, right?
Yeah, and in fact, I was just thinking, I just remembered when I went through my tour, I was with Bob Glowacki, who is there most often, knows what's there, not necessarily what needs to be done, but one of the things was egress, right? And right now we have that awful fire escape on the outside. And there was a plan at some point when those lower bathrooms were being done, is that this would be the opportunity to put an interior stair, a coated stair, and we could take that out and not have to have that as the second means of egress from the second floor.
But you have to go across the stage to get to the...
Well,
this
that's
is the
question, I know.
Yes, so this has been, something unfortunate. This is one of the reasons I'm even on this thing, is that when these things continually come up every year, right, the same things, it's like, okay, well, we need a master plan to solve what we're really going to do with it. Then you're sitting there saying that where does the stair need to be? How does it facilitate the use of the building? And it's in support of the use, not a,
Stop of the use,
yeah.
So that's why I want, instead of having Dave run this or something, I guess that's where if there was a person, a non-town employee that could handle this and be that expert that says, if this was an old theater that we were wanting to renovate, right? You'd go to a theatric consultant and say, hey, we have this, we don't know what to do with it. Can you help us figure out what the best new use of this is, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's just an entity that you could go to and say, we have all these people that want to do certain things in here. Here's what we have. Can you help us come up with that best final use of it?
I could ask people at the Preservation Alliance, but also at LCHIP, because they've funded things that, preserved an old town hall, but it's being used as, something else.
If you get somebody that doesn't have any stake in this, that is like just hearing and then can consolidate, but also as an expert, I guess, in what to do with these type of things, because we're talking about a lot of things that might not be popular, right? Like a partnership with a private entity, leasing space, and what all these other things, and that we're talking about, that certain committees might not be supporting that, but that might not be the best use of that.
Right.
So I don't know. Something to think. That way, it's not taxing Dave or trying to figure out how to run this. It's having somebody that's more professional. I shouldn't say it that way. I didn't mean it that way. But
no, I think it also makes sense that you
don't have a personal interest, because everybody has their vision, right?
Yeah, and has no stake in the game, right?
Right.
It's not. The person isn't doing this because they want to use the building. It's what they're hearing the thoughts, but then being able to speak to the select board about what their professional opinion is of how. We know that it has code issues. That it has renewal issues. That's given, and then the historic preservation part of it.
Yeah.
But so you have a lot of stuff you need to do with it, but you don't know what to do with it to make it the best and final use. So, and then there's going to be my guess is all kinds of options. Then the select board will have to go through and say this is what we think is best for the town.
And to me, this isn't too different than what was just done with the public safety, right?
Yeah, right,
It's an
exactly.
evaluation.
Right.
And it's evaluation on multiple levels. One is just, the historical content, it's the nature of the building, it's, all those things. And then
That's a good
a
point.
master plan or a programming exercise, and then what could it be, right?
No, that's a really good point. I mean, because that is exactly what just happened, right? So they hired a public safety expert
Right.
to develop that program, and then it went to the architect to figure out how to space plan that program. Here's a little different because I think it's so much, it's just a big box that can be used for a lot of different things, right? And there's multiple uses already, whether it's the office space in the lower level and then the gallery and all that stuff. It's more complicated, but I don't know. I mean, it's more money,
I think
unfortunately,
where I was going with this is we kind of have an outline for an RFP.
yeah.
So the idea would be can you take that and kind of craft it so it's an RFP that really goes through, and with your knowledge of these upfront components, you're asking them to, like, okay, we want to get this.
To here.
Significant, we need the significance of the building from a historical standpoint. We need, all these different steps for them to do it, and then pull it all together as a umbrella, one-stop shop.
And we may find through that process that maybe we don't have to do it in one stop. That's ideal.
No, but you could, but if you get a division with each of those sections for them to break out, if I did this is that, if I did that it's this, if I did this is, then you could,
Add-ons, I wrote it.
get a shopping list and,
Yeah.
but I think the issue is you really do have to sit there and put that on the list of this is something that's not an inexpensive thing to do. It's going to
No,
be,
it's not.
it's going to be a lot of money. And so that's one of those, just to make the windows themselves.
They're already double paned. I don't know when that happened, but.
Right, the question would be do they stay double pane or not? Or they go back to their historical single pane, and then are you putting in a custom storm?
The main auditorium space doesn't have any heating and ventilation. I mean, it has heating, but it doesn't have ventilation, right?
Right. Open the windows.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing, is once you start to touch a lot of the spaces, right, then you're going to get triggered to everything. And so that alone is millions of dollars to bring that up to what
Right.
will be required if it continues to be an assembly space.
Right.
It used to have a radiator system, forced water radiator system.
Yeah.
And what you're going to find is these things right here, that's not HVAC.
Right.
That's just
Moving
AC.
air.
That's all it's doing is moving air. There's no humidity control. It's an unsophisticated way to cool spaces versus the idea of truly conditioning the spaces.
The envelope.
Yeah. So
Okay, well, first I have to start with the historical evaluation. I'll send you all the application. It's really pretty simple to get the grant for the historic assessment.
Are there other towns that have something similar to the town hall?
Yes, but we have the most massive one.
Okay.
We've got 5 minutes left, so if there's any new business, I gotta jump right at 4 as well, so anybody, are you all set with that?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't.
Yeah, we'll wait to hear more from you.
That's good discussion.
On that, yeah. Any new business items?
I put that down as new business.
Yes, please.
yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
Oh, if there's nothing else beside that, then that's good. I thought there was gonna be something else. I don't have anything for new business, so.
No, I mean, I don't know, we never really get a project list for anything for 2023.
Oh, yeah.
Did anybody get a project list?
No, but we asked Dave to get it.
Right.
This one, right?
No.
I asked for it at 2, well, I asked twice anyway. Here's 100,000, what? What?
Didn't the BRC see something though?
They may have,
Yeah.
I missed the DPW meeting.
Right.
But
That's
there's no
this-
reason that I shouldn't have had access to it.
Right, and that's the same, probably the same $100,000 line item, right? That gets budgeted every year?
Yeah.
But there are things that I know that were on last year's and this year's that still haven't been done, so.
So, and just, this goes back to this idea of the notion of self-performing. So just to give you a clue, that when you decide you're gonna self-perform a lot of the work, that means that some work that you want them to do that's part of their project list doesn't get done. So,
It's a mini CIP.
yeah, so it ends up being is that they all stay on a list and don't get done year after year after year because you're saying, okay, well, this came up, can you do this and can you do that? And so it's,
There are a couple of things over there that could be done immediately, like the rotted handrails on the porch.
All right.
All right.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second. Oh, do I have to second that?
Yeah, you can
Okay,
say.
second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.
That was a good discussion.
So Julie, I'm ashamed to say I did vote on Tuesday, but I haven't checked the local results. I assume you were reelected is?
Oh,
Okay,
congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'm going to be a little political here since we're done with our meeting.
Yes, go for it.
The Democrats all won up and down by more than 5%.